I think I mean, it's just a moronic comparison in the first place. It's like you are creating like this tribute image of like your kids on a beach of this thing. Like, is anybody posting that with a comparison of like, this is on
Original
par
artwork.
as an artwork with this 200,000 frame hand drawn movie? No. And if you think anybody is doing that, they should be like sectioned for thinking that, right? It's like, this is,
It don't exist, mate. There we go.
it's like a crazy, it's like an argument out of nothing to me in a lot of ways. And
I agree.
The real crazy irony is, I think a lot of the people that are frustrated are people that are copying his style by hand.
Yes.
They're just doing it in a slower way.
It comes back to a lot of the arguments that we've talked about at length in our couple hundred of episodes, where it's like the power laws involved in this. Like, you're either absolutely dominating this game, and maybe you have a season where you make some money commensurate with your massive impact and originality and idea, or just like an execution, or this is something cool that you get to do as a hobby over the internet, and maybe gets you some beer money now and again.
Yeah.
It's like the internet just widens that gap over and over and over again. Could quote a million Navalisms for this. The best person in the world gets to do it for everyone. And this is like how good of an example of that is this? The best person or thing in the world at making images in the style of another artist. Surprise, surprise, it's a trillion gigawatt supercomputer that's been trained on all of that work. It's not somebody.
Welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. You got Jack Butcher, Trung Phan, Bilal Zaidi. Boys, you two linked up in a separate DM here with the hat and the matching jacket, the highlighter pen, color jacket. Did you go out for a run or something, Trung? What was it? Nighttime run? You still out?
Well, I'm
David
gonna
Goggins
actually.
style? From last
Speaking of
night.
David Goggins, I don't know if the listeners remember, but Bilal had made a record like a year ago. Bilal's like, yeah, when I want to spice up the end of my workout, I got this YouTube video of Goggins cut to Rocky audio.
Oh yeah.
Bro,
it's not even the end. It's the whole workout.
The whole thing. No, I literally have that on my phone, and if I ever do like a longer run, whatever, 8 to 10K, I just pull the Bilal out. I'm at the last K, and I needed to finish the job, and that comes out. But
pull the Bilal out is a wild thing to say on the podcast. But all right, and then Jack, you got the highlighter pen, New York Yankee.
Yeah,
fitted.
for the people for the listeners, we're wearing neon yellow. Jack's got a neon yellow Nike hat, and I have a neon yellow North Face running jacket.
Keeping it clean, boys.
Yeah.
All right, we got a lot to talk about because we got, what is it? Studio Ghibli is how we pronounce it. Yeah, the new image model from OpenAI dropped, and everyone probably saw on their
Everyone's
feeds
seen it,
the
but we
anime
want to
style
talk
video.
about
But
Ghibli, the studio.
Yeah, the TLDR is the image model is incredible, and
it's insane.
Yeah, even on the ad side, I saw people taking product photos, like studio quality stuff is really impressive. So we're going to talk about that and maybe some implications around there. Also, xAI bought X, so that we want to hear the breakdown of that. It's kind of related, isn't it? If we get to it, we're going to talk about China and kind of like the impact of the tariffs and onshore and manufacturing in the US. Let's see if we get to that one, boys. But where do we want to start? Because I think there's a lot of memes of the week we missed from last week because we did an AMA double record.
Yeah, the larger idea that to pin for the chat is just these meme cycles that have been going so fast. And I actually want to start with Jack on this because this is right down Jack. I know you got theories of media. So since we last recorded, and really over the last 8 days, there's been absolutely massive, actually 3 massive meme cycles. One that we're probably not going to talk about was the Signal group chat that for listeners, you probably saw that one too, there was the U.S. government did strikes against Yemenis, the Houthi rebels in Yemen. And they had a group chat, and in the group chat, they added the editor of The Atlantic.
Yeah, that's the one.
Is insane if you think about it. Well, we don't really need to talk about the politics of that, but the memes that came out of that.
Oh, my God.
Buddy, rolling over. So we had that. We had Studio Ghibli memes, and then we had the Ashton Hall morning routine.
The ripped dude who did his morning routine.
Yeah, so like
incredible.
Last week, we had 3 like S-tier level meme events. But they're all gone in a week. So, Jack, what is happening? What is happening to our brains? What is going on? This can't be healthy for us.
Also, Jack, last one to add. We got the Gary Stevenson stuff. We've been talking about that in the UK, popping off. It don't exist. I can pull up the video if we need it. But go on, Jack. Back to the meme cycle.
We just the overview of all the like
the meta analysis
meme
of
cycle.
How fast it's happening, like what it takes to compete in this environment now.
I mean, it feels like these things are like crossing over networks too, right? Wasn't that video a TikTok thing originally?
It was either TikTok or YouTube. He has
YouTube
channel.
Probably
it was both,
all, right?
Instagram, yeah. But TikTok went crazy, and then everywhere, Instagram as well, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like it feels more and more like the algorithms converge on one thing per day, right? And I think that over the last 2 weeks have been massive examples of that. We've talked about probably hundreds of examples of it, but they just felt even more what's the word I'm looking for? They're just like everywhere. These things just like seeped into every corner of Twitter. And I know that Ashton Hall one, I think, is it's just so absurdist and like, you know, that do you remember the guy, I forget his name, but he talks about he has 3 days in a day. You know that one? I wake up at 4 a.m., 8 hours. That's my first day. Then I go from this to the, this is like, but this guy knows what he's doing, right? I think this is like, honestly, masterful content creation. My favorite take on it was like, this guy spends all day getting ready for the next day. He does that, and then he gets to his evening routine.
He just dropped a video on his evening routine too, so it's the same thing.
I mean, the guy, like, absolute genius content and marketer, and
the best is the hang time in the air when he dives in the pool. It's like a 4-minute difference. It's incredible.
You're right, though.
Detail.
That's totally engineered for virality. Dude, he played us like a fiddle. He played all of us like a fiddle. Dude, he was him and Mr. Beast did a video last week. Mr. Beast did his morning routine. It's like this guy's game. It was absurd, but it's all performance art. That was performance art. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah. Incredible. And like, it's irresistible to remix it or comment on it. And I think that's the like key to a lot of this stuff is like, and that leads into the Ghibli thing, which is like, how low of a lift is it for you to participate in this trend or like jump in on this joke? And the Ghibli thing, I think, is like, I think it started with I forget which.
I'll show it right now for the listeners. This is the one that kicked
it off. On Twitter
anyway,
yeah.
Somebody
this is the
like
guy
putting their family pictures. Yeah.
Grant Slatton on March 25th, which is a week ago, insane, wrote, tremendous alpha right now in sending your wife photos of y'all converted to Studio Ghibli anime.
Because I literally did, I was like, exactly, let me find a couple photo. It was, do you know what was so perfect about it? Because it stands out in the feed. It's obviously very good. You kind of know the anime style. But it was like a very specific ask, like a CTA. It was like, go and make a couple photos, send it to your wife or your whatever. And that, incredible.
Here's the
more
question I have for you. Because Sam Altman said something. He said it wasn't this was not totally random. There's a reason this style took off. So my question is, do you think that initial Grant Slatton one was planted? Question.
No, wasn't he like alluding to the fact that they showed something in the demo?
Oh,
like they showed some stuff. I think they showed a style
in the long video because
demo.
they did a long video of the.
So
new
they seeded
model,
it. They seeded the idea. Oh my goodness!
And it's like, I mean, that's also like you could take credit for that in post, right? It's like
Fair enough.
This was this really calculated thing to get 10 billion impressions. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
but you know what? Sorry, go on, Jack.
I was just gonna say the behavior converted a lot of people that don't know what to ask or talk about to the like ChatGPT on the fly, right? Like it's like to Bilal's point, the CTA is applicable basically to anybody that has taken a personal photo ever, or basically has like enjoyed a meme on the internet. Because I think a lot of it was just like remixing and putting familiar images back through it, which was like, gave it even more velocity. It's like,
well, here to
take
Jack's
these
point,
classic images and throw them in.
Exactly. So if you want to talk through this one, this is an image from PJ Ace. He took a lot of the bro, like a mansplaining to a girl. Well, also one girl mansplaining to a dude, but took that, made that a meme. This one was great. The Ben Affleck standing outside looking disappointed. Justine Moore writes, ChatGPT when another Studio Ghibli request comes in. This one was great from Jordy Hayes of the Podcast Brothers. He took the meme of Ashton Hall and then turned that into the Ghibli style. I'll do two quick ones. This one was obviously the George Bush 9/11 one. This one killed me.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Taking
everything is Ghibli. Yeah,
Donald Trump, everything, a computer. The last one I'll show to tee up because I do actually want to talk about Hiyao Miyazaki, the co-founder of Studio Ghibli. This is a famous photo from a documentary about him where they showed his creative process. Actually, let me ask you, have you guys seen that documentary? I just finished rewatching it yesterday.
No.
Jack.
No, I haven't watched it.
Jack, I think would love to. It is literally 4 hours of his creative process. Just literally shows him in the dungeons of his office, mulling through photos, drawing something, think he figured it out, and the next day comes back, tears it up, says this isn't it, right? The Jack Butcher creative process. I think you'd appreciate that. Great documentary. But before we talk about studio, let's keep talking about Studio Ghibli, why we think it popped off. Jack brought up a good point. I'm going to follow up with Bilal on that.
Yeah.
Bilal, you said that you did a family, or you took an image of yourself, and CTA was easy, and you did it?
Yeah, I did, yeah. And I guess one of the questions it brings up is we're so Twitter, X focused in our consumption. Obviously, we use other platforms as well. And I think specifically for tech, that's where stuff breaks most of the time. But there's like this old saying, you probably know it better than me, Trung, but it's if you see it on Reddit, you're probably early. If you see it on Instagram, you're probably late or something like that. And it's normally kind of like the adoption curve we talked about many times, but sometimes it's flipped. Like there's certain cultural things that pop on TikTok first. There's like a lot of the tech stuff happens on Twitter first. You often see, like LinkedIn is very late, right? So like if something you read on X business related is going to be on LinkedIn like a week or two later.
Well, why don't you read this? This is exactly to your point.
Oh, that was good. Yeah.
Turner. Why don't you read to the listener what happened here?
Turner wrote, LinkedIn going to be crazy when they find out about ChatGPT can do it. What? They find out ChatGPT can do images next week. Exactly. And then
Reid Hoffman.
Responds, have you considered posting this on LinkedIn? That's very good.
And Turner goes, I'm waiting until next week. But yeah, you nailed it. Exactly. Like the time frame of when these happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so even your question around, was this what kicked it off? That request where he said, send this to your significant other or whatever. It might be that it was already trending on Reddit potentially before. Like I didn't really dig into this where it really popped first, but it's kind of to the meme cycle. It goes that way around with the Ashton Hall guy or whatever his name is. That popped on TikTok and stuff first. Like X is actually, I think, slightly delayed for some of that stuff. Like I find TikTok goes first.
The video stuff.
Yeah, video specifically, and like very cultural mainstream.
There's a native video remix on TikTok too, right?
Exactly.
Like people comment on it and put it back up quickly.
Oh, right. The stitching and the commenting. Yeah.
But anyway. So anyway, anything else on Ghibli there, Trung? You want to talk about?
No, I want to actually, I think how important this is, and I actually asked both of you guys, and actually, I know this is, again, a very Jack-specific thing. I thought this is such Jack's wheelhouse. But Jack, Chris Dixon's article has been floating around again. It's like it will look like a toy, right? Like the numbers that Sam Altman said. Sam Altman said when they launched ChatGPT 26 months ago, the first week had 1 million new users, or in 5 days or something. They said yesterday they had 1 million new users in 1 hour. And driven, it sounds largely by like the image model. And what's crazy is that Midjourney was so far ahead with the images, right? But I think here, the ease of use is so different. Like when you try to use these, we'll talk about how the image model is also different. Like when you do these diffusion models, like you're trying to explain right? Like Jack said, how difficult it was, or even Bilal, have you tried like using these image models and trying to explain like, hey, make it realistic, no mistakes. Like I want it Picasso style, right?
Make no mistakes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
make no mistakes. But it's like, it's actually very difficult to do that. But the mechanic here is so simple. You just put a photo and ask it to do a style. And we should actually talk about the difference between diffusion here and what ChatGPT is doing. So at a high
and
level,
actually, Trunk. But before I forget, can I also mention? Let's come back to my point on Midjourney. How they kind of fumbled the bag a little bit in distribution, because I think it's way up the alley of you guys. Because didn't Midjourney you have to do in Discord? Is that Midjourney, or am I confusing?
It's only very recently has it got a web interface. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll come back to that. But go on, Trunk. I want to hear the breakdown.
Yeah, no, that's a great point about Midjourney. Back to the ChatGPT. You remember how we've talking about how the text works, right? There's basically at a high level, they're ingested the entire internet, perhaps not entirely above board and legally. And when you ask it something, it's basically guessing with the context of what you're asking, what the next word will be, right? In a diffusion image model, it's actually a very type of technology where they're trying to take your request and build an image based on your request, right? Whereas what ChatGPT has done is use the same kind of mechanic for text, and it's guessing the next pixel, right? So that actually makes it now where you can actually get proper text. You guys remember how bad the text was on images before? Like if you ask these diffusion models, like make me a billboard that says for hire, it'll be Hitler for some reason. You know what I mean? No, but seriously, right? It'll just completely mess it up. And but because a ChatGPT's image model is basically guessing the next pixel, and this is why also it takes a little bit longer. You're seeing how it. I mean, they show that
it's
thing.
Like 2000s internet, man.
Exactly.
That bitmap.
It's like bitmap. It's because it's a different approach, but that approach is to Bilal. What Bilal had said. I didn't remember if he said it here or pre-chat. But the stuff you can do outside of the Ghibli stuff, well, let's ask Bilal, what have you tried outside of the kind of the Ghibli toy fun stuff?
I was doing some ad stuff, like not even for my own stuff, but just to test out product images, because I saw people post on Twitter how to do it. So, like, let's say you want to take this as a Fitbit, and you take a picture like this. You can say, create a studio version of this, like a professional photo shoot for this product, and it's very, very good. Like you could use that on your e-commerce store. So yeah, stuff like that I was testing out. I was also playing around with the other fun ones, like was it Muppets? Was another one like Sesame Street, like all these different styles. What about you guys? Did you have any others you were using?
Yeah, actually, Jack, curious about you. Did you use it for any of your kind of art outside of the Ghibli stuff?
Mate, you can get the like merch stuff. You can give it a flat product image and say like put somebody wearing this, and it will do it like 95% accuracy
with the model. Yeah,
you can edit it. It's mental. It's mental. I saw the recipe thing. I saw was cool. I know you did a little remix of that one.
The visual recipe,
that was good.
You sent
that
was awesome.
Just really unbelievable leap in capability, where it's not just generating a scene. It's like it can make very logical compositions of multiple elements, which is like, you know, even a month ago you would be generating every separate piece of that image and then compiling it and labeling it yourself, and then in one leap. The other thing I saw, I don't know if this was in our chat, but there was a guy, you know, you have like these different little characters on Twitter. There's a guy that talks about buying strip malls.
Yeah, strip mall guy.
Strip mall guy.
Yeah. And he wrote some thread about like the process that they used to undergo to create renders of like these busted out old malls, and say like, oh, here's what we want to do to it. And they'd be back and forth with these like architect vendors, not doing any structural stuff, literally getting a render that makes it look like sticks to the dimensions of the
so they could go to like a bank and be like, here's what we're gonna do.
Exactly. Right? And now they could do it in 5 seconds. And that was a like months long process of back and forth. And I think like counter to some of the points I made last week on like, invent stuff to do. There are a lot of like hyper specialized businesses that sit in the middle of this, which runs like totally counter to the advice that people have given in how to, grow your wealth and how to think about building a scalable business. It's like
the specialist versus generalist. You mean, Jack?
Yeah, you're running a single prompt. Your business runs one prompt instead of 20, 30, and maybe a little bit of like unique experience and style and tone. And there would be, I would imagine, people get more and more specialized to try and grow their businesses and like keep the requests that they take on super narrow. And then like it won't happen overnight as soon as the model comes out. But I imagine those communities are so tight that somebody like Strip Mall Guy has the ear of a vast majority of people that operate in that space. And it takes like 8-10 hours of labor a day to 10 seconds of a prompt.
So the biggest beneficiaries of AI have been NVIDIA and the strip mall business.
Anyone using a fax machine, basically. But no, that's
exactly.
a good... And Jack, to your point earlier, I saw this kind of cross the chasm a little bit beyond just, obviously people posting on Instagram, but even like more traditional artists. Like I know you follow this guy as well, Ruben Dangor, really great artist in the UK. He posted putting down the paintbrush and embracing AI, very inspired by those Ghibli images, to be honest. And this is a guy that literally is painting by hand. I think he does digital art too.
Putting down the paintbrush? Done?
Yeah, no, I don't think that means he's done forever. I think I'm just giving him as one example of someone I would normally see in that world who's not maybe fighting it, but it's just crossing the thing where they're like, actually, this is really, really good.
Oh, he's
I
should
be playing with this. The way Jack's been using this stuff for a while. But Jack, I don't know. I mean, you might know his stuff a bit better than I do, but where he's kind of sits.
Let me give you this, boys, a little context setter. You see this?
There we go.
Yeah.
Go on. Do you want to explain that one?
So there's this is a little hand-drawn meme of two people sitting next to each other and a speech bubble above them that they're both saying. It says, "Get a load of this self-righteous pseudo-intellectual that hates work." And then the labels on both of the people, one is an artist and the other is a tech bro. So it's like this phenomenon of basically the critiques of each other are saying the same thing or getting like at this root frustration that people have with the idea of labor being valuable and artists in particular. Like, I think we are again in this like tiny bubble of people that read the announcements that these companies are putting out, immediately rush to like mess around with the product. And I feel like at least the sentiment I read whenever I get outside of that bubble is people are generally like in very vicious opposition to AI, particularly in anything that they would consider to be art, right?
Visual arts, like kind of animation. Well, here, this is why we should talk about Hayao, right? We should talk about Hayao Miyazaki. And I always get his name wrong, but the co-founder of Studio Ghibli. And this is what I wanted to show you because you guys probably saw this floating around, right? He famously was shown a AI render in 2016. And this was his reaction to the AI render. So read that aloud. What did he say?
I'm utterly disgusted.
What's the second line? Read below.
I strongly feel as though this is an insult to life itself. I memorized that, Bilal. It's not up on mine either.
I was going to say, yeah. I was like, wait, are you seeing something I'm not?
So Miyazaki, for listeners that aren't familiar with Miyazaki, Animal. He's a GOAT animator, a filmmaker. He's on the level of Walt Disney. He's the Walt Disney of Japan.
Incredible.
The difference between him and Walt Disney is Walt Disney stole stories from fairy tales from the 1800s. Miyazaki's all original. No, but this is like for real.
There we go.
But Walt Disney's an animal, right? But his work, Miyazaki's work, is original. And I highly recommend people watch the 10 years with Miyazaki. It's free online. It's 4 hours. It's incredible. But back to that. So people, to Jack's point about the artist community getting so mad, they kept referencing that. That was 9 years ago, okay? And the render that he was looking at was literally just dog shit. It was awful. I don't actually know how he'd feel about this, but he historically has been a pen and paper guy, watercolors, hand animated, hand painted, but he was also very good friends with John Lasseter at Pixar and very supportive of a lot of Pixar's efforts, even though he himself never got into computer graphics at that level. However, his instinct, and I did post something when pretty nuclear viral, and I got a lot of death threats from these communities.
As you do.
I posted, well, it's weird, right? It's like Jack said, it's like this, the crowd outside, they just lose their mind about this.
This is stuff, like red meat, man. It's incredible, babe.
It is politics level. And dude, what I put was extremely benign. I was like something very supportive. I put this out.
It don't exist, mate.
I put this video out. So I'm gonna show you. It's a 4-second clip. It's a 4-second clip from one of his films. Incredible film, The Wind Rises. And here's a 4-second clip. I'm gonna play it for you guys. Check out this 4-second clip. You guys see that? It's 4 seconds.
Yeah.
That's it. Done. Right? Okay.
Okay.
The point of that clip was that it took them 15 months to animate it. That 4-second clip took 15 months of hand drawing. And famously in the animation community, doing crowds is very difficult. Understandably. You have 30 to 40 individuals and you're doing it to his standard, which is insane. Like this documentary, he's literally going, he goes through every single frame. There's 60 to 70,000 frames in each of these films. And he'll like look at it and he won't like how the big toe is pointing. And he'll remount the fucking animator and like redraw how the big toe is pointing in one of 70,000 frames. And this film isn't done until he goes through every single frame and then he gets his animators to finish it. So the point I was making there, which is so funny, as like Jack says, red meat, I was basically saying, this is Trung with his I gotta go viral hat on that day. I'm like, okay, I want to put this out. I know this is gonna go nuclear. Ended up being like, what, 5-10 million views. And I was being positive. I'm like, these guys put so much effort in. Don't forget that when we're doing these text prompts and getting these images, like that's just not, it's not the same, right? But I'm also smart, like, nuanced enough to realize this is a different world. But then, Jack, I got the exact same comments you're kind of alluding to. It's like, look at this fucking idiot. He thinks he's trying to ride this Studio Ghibli trend. Miyazaki would hate this stuff. And like literally,
I'm
just
reading
like
your
psycho.
tweet though. You didn't say anything negative.
No, I didn't say anything negative. That's what I mean. But they still turn it into like, look at this guy like trying to jump on this trend, not knowing that Miyazaki would hate AI.
People
right?
Misinterpreted your tweet on the internet, Trung. What the hell is going on?
That's what's funny, right? No, Jack, you're reading that. That's that's a totally benign. Like I'm basically demonstrating these guys are animals. Pay them respect, right? That's what I'm saying. And
also,
even that gets misinterpreted.
That's getting, I mean, I respect the grind of that, right? Like the craft of all that. But man, that is insane that it takes 5 weeks or whatever you said. I forgot the time frame. And you're basically going to be able to replicate that in no time at all.
No, but Bilal, I think this is where we can have a very interesting conversation about this. And
it's based on all that hard work. Don't get me wrong. I get it. But
no, but what I'm saying is like, I think, so Neil Stephenson, obviously super famous sci-fi author, who like seeded a lot of these ideas, right? Like Snow Crash, that a lot of the tech people have built on. He has an essay on his Substack. Came out 6 months ago. And he goes, the difference right now with AI and art and why I don't think AI art is art, and we can debate that. He's like, when you are creating something, you're making micro decisions, right? All of us have created something. You're making tiny decisions, like you're moving, like one thing to the left, one thing to the right. And I think the whole point about Studio Ghibli, yes, it's extreme, blah. I agree with you. 15 months is hella extreme. But like you're making these tiny decisions, right? And I mean, ultimately, that is what art is. You're making all these small decisions. And I think actually people can feel that when they see something. And I think the best art, you can tell when those tiny decisions are being made. So I like you guys' thoughts on that.
I want to hear Jack's thoughts because he's the actual
Yeah.
professional artist of the group. So
I think it's just a moronic comparison in the first place. It's like you are creating like this tribute image of like your kids on a beach of this thing. Like, is
yeah.
anybody posting that with a comparison of like this is on
Original
par
artwork.
as an artwork with this 200,000 frame hand drawn movie? No. And if you think anybody is doing that, they should be like sectioned for thinking that, right? It's like this is
It don't exist, mate. There we go.
it's like a crazy it's like an argument out of nothing to me in a lot of ways. And
I agree.
the real crazy irony is I think a lot of the people that are frustrated are people that are copying his style by hand.
Yes.
They're just doing it in a slower way.
Fucking stupid. It's just completely like there's this economic argument that people make where like he didn't get compensated for every generation of this thing. And this is like a massive philosophical argument. Should they have trained on it in the first place? Should there be some attribution that kicks back revenue to somebody that can be fully attributed to that piece of work or that frame? Or should there be royalties involved in this? I don't disagree with that if you could figure out the mechanics of it, but it's obviously very complicated. And then you have to think about like how many more people were introduced to that work and started streaming it, buying it, looking at it after this stuff went nuclear. There's no way that number went down.
Oh, this is good. Yeah.
This is to Jack's point. Jack, can you read that out? This from Austin Allred. This is exactly your point.
So like it's hilarious. This thing. Billionaire can't afford $40 art commission. Mike Tyson is posting some like ChatGPT Ghiblified version of him holding a dove, right? He didn't wake up that day and be like, I need an anime version of this picture that was taken of me 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And like the economy of people paying people $20 or $40 to like redraw something in someone else's style and then claiming that you have some like economic and moral high ground doing that is so bizarre to me. But at the same time, you can empathize with like where the reaction is coming from. This thing that you have put your hope into being a sustainable and value producing activity just probably got 100 times harder because anybody I think this actually under that tweet, because I saw that when it was posted, someone was like, people think that they're like the Medicis, you know, somebody going out and spending $20 on an art commission every 6 months is like, you're commissioning an artist. It's like you're supporting somebody's hobby, right? It's a very different scale of it comes back to a lot of the arguments that we've talked about at length in our couple hundred of episodes, where it's like the power laws involved in this. Like you're either absolutely dominating this game and maybe you have a season where you make you make some money commensurate with your massive impact and originality and idea, or just like an execution. Or this is something cool that you get to do as a hobby over the internet and, you know, maybe gets you some beer money now and again.
Yeah.
It's like the internet just widens that gap over and over and over again. Could quote a million Navalisms for this. The best person in the world gets to do it for everyone. And this is like how good of an example of that is this? The best person or thing in the world at making images in the style of another artist. Surprise, surprise, it's a trillion gigawatt supercomputer that's been trained on all of that work. It's not somebody and this is also subjective. Like you said, the decision to have the artwork drawn is a different product than putting it through the LLM too. Like people, maybe there isn't as much crossover as I thought there. It's just expanding the number of people that participate.
Right, Jack, if somebody's going to Ghiblify their family, they're still going to pay somebody to hand draw their family, right? Like whoever woke up that morning.
We've got pictures of our dog drawn, right? We've had you see someone's style of art by hand. You're like, I would love to see X in that style.
Yeah.
Pay that person to do it. I don't think, I don't know. It's way more nuanced than it's made out in terms of like those transactions going away completely because it's such a feels like it's wrapped up in so much ideology as it is, right? It's like this little micro economy where it just gets like I wouldn't say more resilient, but more like they resist that even more, like the
Yeah.
idea of using these types of tools in their work. And it is a like I think it's actually a good segue to the Gary Stevenson stuff because it's the same phenomenon, right? It's like this thing that has like more leverage than you can ever possibly imagine having is just hoovering up everything and giving you the individual an ability to like tap into the history of human knowledge and make stuff. And if you, the best thing you can do with that at your fingertips is remix a picture of your family on the beach into an anime character, great. That makes like that also is like the Instagram filter esque onboarding event, right? Why use Instagram? Because if you're a shit photographer, you can put this like ridiculous filter over your image, and the culture at the time widely thought, oh, it looks better when it's like mega saturated or it has some like Polaroid frame around it or whatever else. Those initial Instagram filters were, but it's lowering the barrier to like express yourself. Everybody wants to do that, right? And this is like that was just a perfect event for you get a unique output. It's not very hard to do, like super unique. But it taps into this distribution that's already exists. Everybody's talking about it. It's not like, hey, I came up with my own style. Do you like it? It's like, no, I'm part of this thing. There's this belonging component to it. There's this ease of use. There's a like the uniqueness mixed with the fact that everybody's talking about it is just like the magic formula for sending this thing absolutely nuclear.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
wait, sorry, Bilal. I wanted to ask.
I don't even know
Jack's
if I said
comment.
anything there, honestly. Just
no, I mean, it's interesting to hear your thoughts.
No, you
like-
did. You touched on a lot of.
it's
you
very
touched on a
it's
lot of
kind of
things.
it reminds me so much of the crypto discussions. Remember, like probably the same crowd was like, digital artists deserve to get paid. NFTs are a fucking joke. It's like,
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
squaring
you've been
those
through
two
this. Yeah, you've been
things.
through this.
And the original argument was the power consumption, right? Do you remember, like,
The
if you mint an NFT, you
environmentalist sort of
destroy
thing.
1,000 trees.
Trees, yeah.
And I think that argument is now leaking into this too. Every Studio Ghibli image generated is like burning down whatever natural resources. And it's like it just becomes there's no point arguing with somebody who has no intention of changing their mind, right? It's just
Right.
it's impossible to. It's hard to like. I think I have the ability to empathize with it just coming from the things that I used to get paid to do are now do not need people to do them. Like and if you're not interested in the stuff or you're rejecting it wholesale, it's like it just feels like the opportunities available to you are just getting closed off and closed off and closed off and closed off. And the amount of physical effort you have to apply gets more and more and more. So I understand why people lash out about it, but it's like you can what is it like you can ignore reality for so long, but eventually like reality is not going to ignore you. The consequences will arrive.
Well, Jack, I just want to say, I think you brought up a good point that I do want to pull a thread on is the idea of, okay, the clearest kind of moral or ethics related question here is if they trained on Ghibli frames without permission, which seems at this point almost 100%
There's no way
what
they
happened,
didn't.
right?
Yeah, there's zero chance
so
they didn't.
the question then becomes, there's a monetization question here, which is completely fair, and Ghibli should be compensated. So Ghibli actually sold to Nippon TV, a private broadcaster in Japan, 2 years ago, and part of it was this idea that they want to keep the studio and the IP going because Hiyao is 83 years old now. His son Goro, they have a pretty tense relationship. Goro became an animator, but I mean, in this documentary, it's pretty sad. His dad shits all over him. It's like, it's not great. And Goro didn't want to take over the studio. All right, so there is this compensation aspect, which I think is extremely important. I'll give you actually a recent example that has come up of how, it's to Jack's point. I think we're all kind of on the same page of this. It's like you can't keep your head in the sand. It's coming. It's coming. It's unfortunate for the people that refuse to accept that it's coming. This stuff's happening, right? And it's like we talked about before. It's like when the camera was invented in the 1850s. 99% of painters back then were doing portraits, right? They're doing portraits of painting Jesus or doing historical scenes, literally, right? And like once the camera was invented, if you were painting portraits as a job, you were no longer needed, right? And that had to adapt. That actually led to a lot of different painting movements, like Monet, Manet, and then eventually Van Gogh. But back to the conversation, legit question, 100% legit question. The other thing I want to ask,
Trunk, real quick on that
Bilal.
before we jump ahead. I think what you said, I kind of agree with at a high level, but then going one step deeper, like you basically said they need to get paid, and kind of said it in a way that was like, oh, that's obvious, which I mostly agree with. But the one layer deeper is, well, who gets paid and who doesn't? Does Jack get paid in his visualized value style, being like, I just tried in ChatGPT and it knew what visualized value style was, and it was trying to generate, like, now who gets to decide what is unique? Now, is that like you've registered it legally with IP laws or something? Or is it, that's quite a hard thing
Jack,
to decide.
No, Bilal, you're right. You can't, I don't think you can copyright a style. You can't.
Yeah.
Right? No, you're 100% right.
The argument would be if you're using
to train the model. That's different.
No.
Or that
I'm saying
phrase,
if you use the word Ghibli to get your image
versus anime style.
There's like a direct attribution there, right? And they're going to build, like, I'm surprised they let you, Bilal, because maybe they oscillate between restrictions. But I did one and said, make me this image in the style of Jack Butcher, and it will say, I can't do a direct reference to a
interesting.
That's actually what it said. But
then it goes, but if you want something in the style of visualized value that's black and white with and this, I can do that. So it's like they're like legalese their way around it. Like it'll say, I'm not going to do Studio Ghibli, but do you want friendly anime from this era?
Style,
Does that sound good? Yeah, great. Like it's an unsolvable problem in so many ways, and the pre and post these models is a really fascinating subject to me, where the things that were ingested to make these things are going to be so influential on the future of aesthetics and the amount of noise that's coming out of these models. How do you make something as profound and resonant as the Ghibli aesthetic universe now? You might be able to make it, but it didn't exist over that period of time, marinating in so many people's conscious and subconscious, emulated by all these people, revered. It's like, I've tried to write about it. I haven't got it perfect yet, but it's like ADBC type thing. It's like pre-LLM, post-LLM. If the content, like I'm weirdly relieved to hear that it knows me.
Yeah.
And
it knows visualized value. I'm like, that's sick.
That's amazing.
That's going to be part of the training data for all of this stuff. And if I have any hope or, aspiration to remain relevant into the future, if the LLM knows my style of work,
you want to be in that.
I have a decent. I would rather be in that position than not.
Yeah, I get you. No, that's a great point.
Like, I think like people who have devoted their life to like drawing frames hand by hand, I think you can have two very different reactions to it. One is like, this is an insult to life itself. Two, it's like, wow, this is an incredibly profound thing that I created, something that millions of people want to express themselves through as this vehicle. And I would be really curious, Trung, based on what you said, this was 10 years ago. It's like you're seeing something that is repulsively shit compared to what you're making as an output. But I do think I have read other stuff from him, and he's like, I think it is way more of a like moral philosophical thing. It's
Oh no,
like,
he's a
this is
hand.
humans
he's
giving
about-
up on themselves, and
This was what he was looking at.
Too.
This is what he was looking at. So for the listeners, it literally it looks like a piece of poo.
Slop, like
Yeah.
true slop.
So that was 2016, but yeah, you're right. He's he's a straight up dude. He's just a hardcore traditionalist.
It's like Japanese style, man. It's like, everything
no, it's
craft
Dude,
matters.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example from the documentary, like just his mindset. So they filmed during those earthquakes in 2011 at the Fukushima, and Studio Ghibli decided to shut down. They held a meeting without him to stop production on the film. He rolls up to the studio. He's pissed. He's like, "What do you mean you're shutting down? We're not shutting down." Like he literally says, "This is a myth-making moment for this studio. We're gonna show the world that we're gonna keep making and drawing and animating while to show the world that Japan is strong, right?" Like this is his mindset. He's like, "No one's taking a break today. We're gonna keep drawing while we have 85-year-old seniors going into radiation zones. If they can do that, we can keep drawing." Like that's his mindset, right? So no, you're right. It's like I think philosophically he probably wouldn't be okay with it, but that it's this thing like this is an insult to humanity. Like that was
incredible bars. He's like put on record. I love it. It's amazing.
Okay, well, let's do this then. Let's transition to this. The other question I want to ask you, the Chris Dixon essay, which very famously, obviously, one of the big crypto's first moments, consumer-wise, was CryptoKitties, right? It was a game, and that was for Ethereum. How many parallels do you see with kind of like Chris Dixon's article? Things start off as toys, being applied to this, and maybe give some context around that thesis and how you see that applied to this Ghibli moment and ChatGPT just blowing up again 2.5 years since its initial blow up.
It's funny because maybe it had the opposite expected adoption curve to something like crypto, where like it is pure utility. They're trying to make this thing to be like a tool, and I guess you could say that you could apply that statement to crypto as well. But I guess the thing that's really picked up in the last month or two, I think all of the like software generation, cursor, vibe programming, whatever the vernacular is around that to me is maybe the like 0 to 1 moment, in the same way where people are like building these little ecosystems on chains like Ethereum and getting people to like basically recruiting people to these mini networks that they're making as a function of this infrastructure, which is what's happening with Peter Levels. You've seen this game that he built, the airplane game. He's making, I don't know, 7 figures off like the ads placed in this game.
Unbelievable,
incredible.
Dude.
Yeah, unbelievable. The execution and just like ship it, see what happens. Ship something else, see what happens. I think people dismissing it as unsophisticated or you remember the no code stuff. Do you remember that it had like kind of its moment? And I think some of the skepticism comes from thinking, oh, maybe this is in the sort of the same league as that, where like the people operating at the higher cognitive end of this discipline are never going to use this, or it's like, it's only to complete trivial things. It doesn't feel like that to me for so many reasons, but I just don't think I buy the toy framing. I just don't think it's as similar as that, because it doesn't feel like a toy to me. Like I feel like the Ghibli thing was actually people using it as a toy for the first time.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people come face to face with the LLM, like, what shall I ask this thing? Or it's like Google, where you're like, I have a specific question. I did my back in last week, and I'm like, have this massive long context window with ChatGPT of like, what is the injury? Could it be this? Could it be that? pain is here. What's the rest protocol? And that had been my use for it for so long. Or you use it as like how Bilal's using it. Like, how do I basically get this to work for me? The tasks that I would be performing on a daily basis. How can I outsource some of that? And this was a moment where people were like, oh, I don't have a ChatGPT subscription. I don't really need it. They see like some image and are like, oh, that's cool. I want to do that. That to me is like maybe was the first example of it being a true toy with a low barrier to entry, in the same way that like the CryptoKitties example is like digital objects are a thing and you can buy them and trade them and own them. And that will be mocked by 99.9% of people until you reach a different point in time where it's like, how do we ever do this any differently? That was like a ridiculous standard that we'd set for ourselves in the first place. But it's very obvious that it's going to consume so much of, I don't know, work. I think like the idea that you won't be working with a model of some description in basically any line of work is probably a wrong assumption. And there's been a lot of cycles of like, agency world like gets you like overexposed to this stuff too. Remember Internet of Things? You remember that shit, Bilal?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! How big of the $1 trillion opportunity?
Toaster, connected fridge, and I don't know. I think there's some
3D printing was another big one. I mean, all these things are, to be fair, things still, but they're not necessarily the same.
This time it's different, man. Like the Internet of Things was a net negative to society. I will stand very proudly behind that statement. It's the worst thing to ever happen to home appliances. It's needing fucking password to log into like a air conditioner.
A toaster?
Crazy.
Bro, two-factor on your toaster. Do you know what I mean?
The two-factor authentication.
That's insane. Could you imagine
get
that?
an executive, honestly, write an executive order immediately banning that. When you buy an appliance, plug it in.
We need the OTP, man.
Why do I need Wi-Fi connect from my oven? Hold on a second. Why do you need to log how often I'm baking a frittata?
Can I just add one thing to what Jack said here? Jack, I love the example of Peter Levels and that same thing that people like, oh, well, this is stupid, blah, 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 where he's just gone and printed 7 figures in revenue, right? In ads. He's just printing, doing stuff.
Dude, and in ads.
In ads as well, not even just pay. And so before that, it's the same kind of argument people have when all these ChatGPT rappers came around. I know Trung's barely AI adds a lot more value than just being a rapper. But like, but you bring in different models and stuff. But
rappers are the business model now, buddy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So that's what I was coming to is, in this case, like what just happened with the Studio Ghibli thing, that could easily have been a viral app. That was a Studio Ghibli app, and maybe someone will make that. But this was one of the first times I saw people, it was so simple that you could just put it in ChatGPT yourself, and a regular person has already been using ChatGPT enough. They've at least done a few kind of like searches or prompts on it to know this is simple enough. Whereas, what was the one that went super viral like a year and a half ago? It was similar, like cartoon style images and stuff.
It did your faces and it made like 30 mil in 6 weeks,
it was
right? And then disappeared.
Exactly.
Oh, just headshot things.
Exactly, yeah. Or like what both Levels and Danny Postma as well, friend of the pod, also had these headshot sort of things. And they are essentially rappers as well, but they have a very specific purpose. Or what was it, interior design AI?
That was a good
That was another one Levels did, I think. So there is, it's an interesting moment where I still think those verticalized things are going to be there, like a very specific use case. Because a lot of it is like you said, people don't know how to use these tools very well still, including myself. So you're going in there and you're trying in this prompt. This worked because the prompt was quite easy. There was another one I did the other day. Someone posted on Twitter and it was like, copy and paste this in, and it was something about like harsh truth that you needed to hear. Did you guys see this one? And it was like, it was basically saying, you are ChatGPT, you have an IQ of 180
Oh yeah,
plus.
yeah, I saw that.
You're like expert in motivation, all these different things, psychology, and tell me in this format, harsh truth, what I need to do and something like that. And based on your history, you'll hit it, and it will hit you with some hard facts. It will be like, you're
harsh truths, if you will.
Yeah. You're like, you're thinking about this too much, or whatever the response is. And there's a whole wrapper there in basically some motivational coach or some shit, like for every category, like nutrition coach, like people are paying someone to have a call every week for like £100 or dollars a week, just so that someone can say, you didn't put it in MyFitnessPal, like, so they have an accountability partner. There's all these sorts of use cases that are still going to be there. But I think we saw this like thing where ChatGPT, people were just going direct, and it kind of brings up what I brought up earlier. I love your take, is how Midjourney kind of missed the boat a little bit, because Discord's interface for that is pretty shit in my opinion. Like, I don't even love Discord in general. Like, every time I log into Discord, I'm like, I don't know where to start. It's just crazy amounts of messages. I can't really follow what's going on. And if that was where I needed to go to like create an image, that was not very frictionless for me. So love your take on that as well, because I know you guys talk a lot about distribution being obviously key here.
I mean, it feels incredibly niche compared to ChatGPT. Like, even just what is the demographic of Discord is probably like
gamers and DJs.
I would be on the very top end of the age bracket of Discord, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And I'm not a huge fan of it either, but I don't know if it felt like, but one thing about Midjourney, I'm not going to get the specifics of this. It's like ridiculously small team. They're making like ridiculous amounts of cash.
They're minting.
It's like a totally different business model in a lot of ways. And they almost went like the hyper specialized, serve the image maker, artist, designer, whatever. And the one really cool thing about Discord is it kind of reminds me, like, if ChatGPT is this is going to be maybe I might eat my words on this in a few episodes. It's like ChatGPT has more like Canva energy, and Discord is like Midjourney is like Photoshop, right? It's like the degree of artistic control you have in Midjourney, and the community that exists around the image generation in Discord is very robust. It's like people will build these style references, and you could say somebody has like Dark Knight aesthetic, right, where you have a certain type of lighting, certain type of texture, certain type of composition in your images. You run all these prompts through it, and then you can share that style. So it becomes this like, there's this like really interesting primitive in that builds like a very resilient community of people versus like the corporate slop fest, like smash images through this as fast as you can. So Midjourney is definitely going to be smaller, I think, definitely more specialized, but it has like, I think maybe casual Midjourney users would have swapped to ChatGPT maybe, or like justified canceling a Midjourney subscription. But it feels like to me a wildly different product, a North Star and user than a ChatGPT. Like, give me a recipe visual that I can like cane SEO keyword backlinks with, right? Which is going to be the vast majority.
So, talking of ads, make a recipe site with 72 ads on it.
Make no mistakes.
Make no mistakes, exactly. But no, that's a great. I like that camera example. That's a great take. Comparison.
I got no insight. That's great. The only insight I'd have is what Jack's initial instinct is: a small team. I think David Holtz, the founder and CEO of Midjourney.
Chad.
Yeah,
insane.
He even talked about it. Like, I remember some VC wrote like similar to us, is like Midjourney blew their opportunity, and then he's like, man, like I'm not trying to build like a VC. Like I'm not trying to build the next Google.
I would not mind having started Midjourney.
No, exactly, right? It's like, and the great question, and it does.
They have no funding.
Yeah, zero. Unbelievable.
That's
unbelievable
insane.
business, man.
No, I was thinking even the CoreWeave, like we don't have time to talk about it today. CoreWeave's IPO just happened. It wasn't, a massive. It was pretty negative as far as
It's
IPOs
like a bubble
go,
within a bubble.
yeah, they're still chilling. Like these guys are absolutely living
the
life
founders are chilling because they've only owned 4% of the company.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, they've already cashed out. Yeah, they're living a good life.
They have 111 employees as of 2024.
Mid-journey.
And it made 300 mil last year.
Oh,
wow.
Dude,
that's insane revenue per employee.
These guys are fine. Yeah, these guys are fine.
100%. All right, do we want to quickly wrap it up on
Why don't we do this? Let's talk xAI as a victory lap for Jack, who called this 18 months ago, and then I can talk about the Grand Canyon, which I saw last week.
Let's do it. Yeah, I think that was a good chat in the end on that.
All right, let's do this. X acquires xAI. I'll walk through the details super quickly.
Go for it.
I mean, we're talking about a related party transaction. Like, I think Jack, you sent it to me. You told me to do like a Tiger Woods putt. And then he already knew the
Obama meme too.
Yeah.
You know, the medal, the Obama putting the medal on.
Himself the presidential medal of freedom. It was like Elon did this deal with himself. But I think I'll go through the details and I'll ask you guys what your thoughts are on it. Definitely let's take the victory lap because we make so many bad calls on here. We should be able to claim the right ones. But Jack, how do you feel about everything that was said? And could you address Jack Dorsey's tweet where he said, I think the utility is more important than the name here. Does the Twitter name have baggage where it is sheddable?
I think so. I also think there's like the narrative upside of something new is this guy's pretty good at that too, right? Like what was Tesla when it was a single, what was it? Lotus that they like put a battery in basically, right? It's like, the idea of declaring this massive vision for the thing, even if the starting point is completely abstract from that, which also I think gets you, I don't know, it buys you room to improve the thing too, right? In the minds of the people that are watching the growth of this thing, the people who do believe in it, the departure from, like people have a definition of what Twitter is and what Twitter does and what to expect. So in a way, the name change at that level, in theory, allows people to consider different possibilities for what they would use it for, like the language used in that tweet that he responded with, right? Like the interesting thing about Facebook trying to make money, like make a currency. Do you remember that? What was that? Libra or something that they were messing around with a few years ago? Like doing that under the Facebook brand is kind of dead on arrival for that reason versus this is going to be a feature basically within this bigger network of products. I imagine it's going to face a lot of the same challenges, but in my mind, it's way more of a, like it creates so much more room for the thing to grow in every different direction, as opposed to it being criticized as, Twitter not being suitable for doing X, Y, or Z, because it isn't. Like the way I think you get new people or new behaviors to happen is to reconfigure that in some way, right? It's almost easier to get people to accept a different set of features under a new name than it is to get them to change their behavior on this thing that
on the existing one.
It is just I think he said the 140 character thought at a time going out tweet, and a lot of the like legacy blue check commentary on this rollout is like, you never change a brand where you become a verb. This is like the marketing consultant that's never made a brand that got turned into a verb, but is like retroactively applying that rule. And yes, it's incredibly ballsy move, but what do you expect? Like this guy's not buying Twitter, I don't think, to keep maintaining Twitter. It's like there's obviously a vision bigger than that involves a bunch of other stuff being built. So
the transaction, it's a very related party transaction. Obviously, a lot of the same investors are in X and then the AI lab xAI, or I guess originally Twitter. And the transaction values xAI 80 billion, and then it values X at 33 billion. So that's 45 billion minus 12 bill debt. And it's just, it it was so like it's such a tweet. It's not really clear what's happening. Like, is Linda still the CEO of the combined company? How will that happen? Like, what's going to go on here? Is Elon hands off? Or are they going to have full-time executive to run it? The entire entity. It's not totally clear what's going to go on there. But let's just toss it to you guys. Initial reactions to this deal. It felt inevitable, honestly. I mean, that's why Jack kind of called it 18 months ago.
What do you mean?
So
It felt inevitable. That's why I called it.
No, you said that X being the umbrella.
Jack's like, wait a minute, I was way ahead of the curve on this one.
I'm trying to collect my clout, man, for the initial call. No,
it wasn't inevitable. It wasn't inevitable.
Yeah, there you go. No, the like this master of narratives, I think. Like AI, unbridled upside, the ability to basically project out anything if you have that acronym attached to your business. How many cars can you sell? Well, there's only so many people that can, drive cars. And, maybe if you make the cars drive themselves, then you can come for a little bit of Uber's revenue. How big can you make a car company? Oh, you know what? We're going to have a robot. What's a robot going to do?
We're no longer a car company. Yeah.
Anything. What if people do? Anything. What about Earth? Nah, what about Mars?
Yeah, what about the rest of the universe?
How about the TAM is always going up to infinity?
That's a great point.
If the business can ever be defined as something that has a limit, or the market
exist, mate,
yeah,
basically.
Exactly. The market has priced in the upside of a social media network. You know what? We're not a social media network anymore. We are an everything app. We are a super hive mind hardware company that can
selling data
extend the light of consciousness into infinity, and thus your 401k returns will parallel that infinite upside.
Jack,
I think that's it. Marry the narrative. It's a great lesson for
your
us all,
Tesla example
any scale, right?
Is fantastic. It was like, we're not doing cars anymore.
Yeah,
it's
we're
full
no longer
self-driving,
a car company.
robotaxi, robots. We're an AI robotics company, right? That literally. Bilal, your thoughts?
Just play the game better than everybody, right? It's the same thing that the quarterly call is always, what buzzword we're going to knock in there? Metaverse was the other, Internet of Things was the old thing, and I feel like the orders of magnitude at which that game is being played, when you're talking about space exploration, humanoid robot, however magnificent of a vision and unlikely or difficult it is like one of my favorite ChatGPT prompts, you should try this, is like, give me an answer that's out of distribution. Don't give me the typical expected answer. And I saw this prompted somewhere. I was like, tell me something that is like an insight about human beings that they fail to recognize themselves, totally out of distribution. And it always comes back along the lines of like, people would much rather have the idea of hope and uncertainty and upside is more broadly sought after than certainty or limitation or whatever. Like, everybody wants to think tomorrow is going to be better than today, right? That's the fundamental driving force. And being able to sort of harness that into the scale of these companies and tell stories that way, and honestly execute on the stuff, I know there's been tons of criticism about how long after something's been said that it's taken, but you have to give some credit.
xAI was insane. It was done in 2 years. It was 2 years. It's been 2 years. Elon stood up a AI lab, a frontier AI lab with its own data centers. And again, the valuation, we didn't even mention yet, but OpenAI raised $40 billion at $300 billion valuation. Masayoshi-san balls deep in this deal. He's $30 billion. And
quickly, Trung, how much did Elon buy Twitter for originally?
44.
So this is basically the same valuation. It's basically flat.
But again, it's really price. I mean, he's setting the price here, but I think the larger question, and it comes to what Jack had kind of said, and we've discussed on this podcast, all of us, is a vessel now for this thing. So if AI is the hype cycle, he became a vessel to soak up tens of billions of dollars, right? Like if you are a Saudi investor, Middle Eastern investor, sovereign wealth fund, and you couldn't get into the OpenAI deal. Oh, what do you know? The richest man in the world
Funding
owns all
secure.
these assets. Yeah, you need me to soak 5 billion of your investor base? Give it to me. We could 10x this thing, right? It's actually crazy how quickly that happened.
I think we called this back then too is I don't know if you boys have ever done anything with the X API. It's so insanely expensive. It's mental. Like
the 45K
tiers,
a month or something? Yeah.
It's insane. And I think the advantage that comes from owning that source of information, I think it's very hard to sort of fathom in real time. Even, I might be way off with this, but even like the Studio Ghibli thing was a OpenAI achievement. Then all of the output goes into X.
Yeah.
Literally the only way to show that and connect with the world and like keep getting the new data is to put it on X. So whatever great information is generated by these other models, the infrastructure that shares it with the world gobbles it all up. So it's like, even if you're creating these like net new combinations of information, if they go into X, which these models can't scrape those.
No, X get all the commentary, right? Like everything we talked about, all the tweets.
To be fair,
it
also goes,
commentary, but I think
it also goes in Instagram and it also goes in text messages.
No, but I mean,
like
the training. I think the training is more specific. Like to Jack's. Okay, the value. What was the value for xAI that we've talked about for ages? Is the real time feed. That is the real differentiator, right? The fullest, fastest. Again, maybe not necessarily the most accurate, because that flood of info has got a lot of questionable stuff in there. That's what community notes was ostensibly for. It's just impossible at the speed of internet to keep up with that. But it is a differentiator. It is 100% a differentiator. But to Bilal's point, Llama has the same with Instagram, Facebook. Not as real time, not as newsy. They also have threads. But
I would try to just add real quickly to what Jack said and try to keep it balanced and try to take the other side slightly. And I'll basically say I agree with everything Jack said in terms of like the master of narrative, and social media only has this X TAM, and then AI has X TAM times X, whatever. It's basically infinite. So that incredibly well played. But what I would say is, if I'm being honest, from the initial hype that happened when he bought Twitter to now, you could also argue it hasn't worked out in a way that he necessarily wanted. It did work out for many ways. Like he won the election with Trump. He's basically got a mouthpiece with hundreds of millions of people going to listen to his stuff. So I think for him, he's won either way. So I'm not like talking about that. But I'm saying as an actual just isolated social media platform, you can argue that it hasn't really improved too many magnitudes, since then. The advertising is still terrible. I used it myself recently and it had terrible issues.
You've been doing spend for your clients on
for one, and it was I'll be like genuinely it was the worst experience I've had in any advertising platform for a while.
I saw your face thinking about how you done it, and I could see you were not happy.
Just to be honest, it was like basic stuff, like numbers not showing in a dashboard, like the ads, you can't pause an ad, you can't pause a campaign, and like the support was quite helpful, but you have to do it through DMs. It's just like, it's not a great experience. Like I would never recommend that again for a while, like to anyone. And I was trying to spend more and we weren't able to spend more and stuff like that. So it was just like stuff like that. Just the table stakes of like a social media network, in my opinion, hasn't been run very well. And then you could argue also just on the flip side around, that old thing about Jordan saying Republicans buy sneakers too.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing that play out now with Elon. As much as he's still on top of the world, in his own way, he's feeling the crazy backlash on the Democrat side, even in Europe.
Europe is crazy.
Yeah, I think it's smart like business play, but long term, I think he's done a lot of damage to himself. Like, and that's not just because of X, that's because of him aligning himself with Trump and stuff. So I think business play wise is consistent with what he's done before, and he's done it time and time again in a good way. I'm saying, like, as a smart business move, and he's doubled down, tripled down on his bets. But I'll say, like, as a social network, you could also make the argument that it hasn't worked out, and therefore he's having to find this alternative to value it
that's the
higher.
point. He
found a way out, though.
Yeah, he found a way out. That's a crazy thing, right?
Exactly.
Wildly overpaid for X. To Bilal's point, it's not a good social network. Monetization wise, it's never been monetization wise. It's more of an.
But it was better than it was now. That's the thing. It's gone down in monetization. Like, advertisers left. The advertising. Yeah, it's advertisers left.
But the real unlock for Twitter, though, was probably never to be in advertising. Like, Bilal, you've explained a million times, right? It tried to be a brand advertising thing. That's just never been. Same with Reddit right now, right? Like, the big narrative around Reddit is, hey, we're human input training data. That was a big part of the run up as a public company. Obviously, they're improving ad business, but I agree with you 100%. It's like X as a social network was not a super appetizing business, and it never really was. But xAI, again, there's a narrative around it, and you're one of basically 2 or 3 players now that could capture this larger intelligence, intelligence on demand pie. So I think we're on the same page on that part.
Yeah. Great stuff. All right, boys, should we call it here? We had the China stuff. We can do another week. That's all good.
And you know what? Let's skip the Grand Canyon because I got a boogie too.
All right, nice chat, boys. I hope everyone enjoyed that. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
Cheers.